Hello, I'm Captain Jim, and this is Things You Should Know About, a show where I talk about things I think you should know about. And today I think you should know about the Tales of the Ketty Jay. So the Tales of the Ketty Jay is a completed series of 4 books written by Chris Wooding, and they include Retribution Falls, the Black Lung Captain, the Iron Jackal, and the Ace of Skulls. The closest description to a genre for these series of books is steampunk, and yet this swashbuckling adventure also contains elements that would more typically be found in fantasy or classic science fiction. The series is set in the quasi-Victorian land of Vardia, a large country ruled by a wealthy aristocracy and headed up by the Archduke. So Vardia is currently undergoing what is known as the Third Aviation, where grand airships are used as the main form of transport. Now, forget the Zeppelin-like airships that you imagine. These ironclad hulks use a naturally occurring substance known as aerium, which, once refined, is then pulverised by electromagnets in the ship's engine to produce an ultralight gas that provides the ship with lift. A separate series of propane thrusters are then used to provide propulsion, and while this dual engine system wouldn't be particularly stable or practical in reality, in this alternate fantasy world it's perfectly viable. So the story follows the haphazard adventures of the crew of the ship, the Ketty Jay, a group of freebooting privateers who are just trying to dodge and scam their way through the world. At this point, it would be remiss of me not to point out the similarities between this crew and the crew of the Firefly. However, they shouldn't be thought of in any form of sort of cheap knockoff, really, because while I love Firefly, the Ketty Jay series and the crew in general and the whole story setting is far better. So the crew consists of 9 main characters. The lead, if you will, is Captain Frey, the owner of the Ketty Jay, and he's a layabout, frequenter of rape dens and serial womanizer. There's Silo the engineer, and this stoic and frequently silent man is Mathurian, who's from a slave race in Somala. Now this is a country that exists in a kind of Cold War state with Vardia. We have the fat alcoholic Dr. Malfrey, who with his fantastic moustache, quick wit and friendly manner, it's very hard not to like him. And then we come to Jez, who's actually the newest member of the crew. So she signs on in like the 2nd chapter of the book as a navigator, and I don't really want to ruin too much about her story, but let's just say that her increasingly uncanny skills come from a very interesting place. So then we come to Harkins and Pin. Now these 2 fighter pilots fly the outflyers that accompany the Ketty Jay. So Harkins is an ex-coalition Navy pilot who's so shell-shocked by his service that he's pretty much frightened of everything, except when he's in the cockpit of his firecrow. Pin, on the other hand, although extremely annoying to many of his crew, is an excellent pilot, but mostly because of the combined efforts of his great skill and the fact that he's so grossly stupid that he has no concept of his own death. And finally, that brings me to my personal favourite, Craig, who is an aristocrat and demonist, along with Bess, who I shall mention in a moment. Now, demonism is the generally forbidden art or science of summoning entities from the ether, known as demons, by using a series of complex audio frequencies, and then enthralling them to objects in order to complete certain tasks. So this could be something simple like the golden tooth that Craig has that allows him to hypnotise weak-willed people, or something more complex like the cutlass that he uses to pay Frey for his passage aboard the Ketty Jay, which fights with a mind and a will of its own. And then there's Bess, Craig's golem, who's a giant set of armour that's basically been thralled and constitutes essentially the group's Incredible Hulk. Oh, and I mustn't forget to mention Slag, the ship's cat. So as the story progresses, we discover that each of the crew has some sort of incident in their past that has driven them on to seek solace and refuge on the Ketty Jay. So where the unspoken rule is you don't ask about anyone else's past, and nobody asks about your past, because it doesn't matter what's happened previously, you're one of us now. So when the crew takes on a too-good-to-be-true job, they end up being framed for mass murder and for the death of the Archduke's son. So this makes them public enemy number 1, and they're ended up being chased by public contractors and government forces alike. So once their initial instinct of go run away and hide has kind of faded, they realise in order to get out from under the shadow of this thing, then they need to go head straight back into the eye of the storm and find out who's framed them and why. This of course requires all of their criminal wit and skills in order to prove that they're not the criminals that everyone thinks they are. So there are many elements that make these books a thoroughly enjoyable read. There's the brilliantly realised world, which not only includes the airships that I've mentioned, but also golems, powerful religious cults, slave races, ancient civilizations and demons, just to name a few. So there's the wonderful character development. We get to see these broken people with the things in their past. We slowly discover what the incidents in their past are and watch them grow into becoming more than just a crew, but a family that will really sacrifice and do anything to protect each other. There is, of course, the action. From the first page to the last, the books are chock full of beautifully realised fist fights and sword fights and gun fights and dog fights. But this isn't the most important thing. The book doesn't take itself too seriously, which I love. Constantly all the way through it, there's a sense of humour and an undercurrent of self-realisation that makes it so easy and beautiful to read. Basically what I'm trying to say is that I love this series. It's probably actually become my favourite set of books, including Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, I know. And while I'm more than a little sad that it's finished, at least now we don't have to wait for the author to write the next book. So if you enjoy a good old-fashioned adventure yarn, then I strongly recommend that you go and get them. They should be high on your reading list. If you like Firefly, if you like pirates, if you like steampunk, if you just like action, go and get these books. They're brilliant. So additionally, I think that this would make an incredible TV show. It's full of all great stuff. It's got lovable characters, it's got action and adventure and story and intrigue and romance and everything in there. So if you make TV shows and you're watching this, or you do know somebody else who makes TV shows, then please go and look for the Tales of the Ketty Jay, Retribution Falls by Chris Wooding, and investigate somehow into making some TV show. If you can manage to make it, I will love you forever, unless it's terrible, in which case there will be a strongly worded letter written and never sent. So that's kind of all I've got time for, really. But before I close up, I'd like to tell you about Rake. This is a poker variant that's very popular in the lands of Vardia, and is constantly mentioned throughout the book because it's one of the captain's main vices, amongst many. Now normally I wouldn't bring up this kind of detail, but Chris Wooding has actually written full rules for the game and included them in the back of Retribution Falls. There we go. And it seems like a very interesting and exciting way to play poker. So hopefully I'm going to get some people together and make a Dreadnerd away mission of us playing Rake. If and when I manage to do this, then you should be able to find a link here somewhere on the screen. Good job, future Jim. So all that leaves me to say is thank you for listening. Please like this video if you did like it. And of course check out and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more. And hopefully I shall see you again.